right? So today we are with Triathlon Taren. Very excited to introduce him to you. And he is answering all your questions in relations to preparing for the TriLife Sun City Triathlon in August in sweet, sweet Jamaica. So without further ado, before we go into his presentation, I want to go ahead and invite you guys to go to our Facebook page, TriLife 876. That's on facebook.com at TriLife 876. That's our page. Of course, the TriLife Sun City Triathlon in August. Now, if you're just joining us and you missed my whole introduction, we are doing an interview right now with Triathlon Taren, and we're talking about training tips for preparing for the Sun City Triathlon in sweet, sweet Jamaica. So who is this gentleman that I'm about to introduce to you? Well, our guest today is a very famous live streamer and a triathlete. He has participated in triathlons all over the world, and he's going to speak to us today about how to get ready for your triathlon in August in Jamaica. So without further ado, here is our very special guest, Mr. Taren. How are you? Welcome.
I'm good, Candace. Thank you for having me here.
Hi, no problem. Great. I'm excited to kind of talk with you a little bit about how to prepare for our triathlon in Jamaica. And so first of all, I know you have a little presentation prepared, but could you go ahead and reintroduce yourself to the people?
All right. Well, my name is Taren Gazelle. A lot of people might know me more publicly as Triathlon Taren. And about 3 years ago, I started a YouTube channel just for fun. I was an investment advisor wearing a suit and tie all the time. And on the side, I did triathlons, and I wanted to just learn how to make videos and do things on the web. So I started making videos, and I loved it, and I decided to make those videos about what I loved the most. And the times that I was happiest was when I was doing triathlons. And at that point, I'd been doing triathlons for about 5 or 6 years. Now I'm entering, I want to say it's my 10th season or 9th season doing triathlons, done triathlons all around the world, probably 50 or 60 races, qualified for the Half Ironman World Championships that are coming up this September in South Africa.
Wow.
Done a couple of that's exciting. Lots of training going on for that.
Yeah.
Done a couple of open water marathon swims, one of 27 or 28 kilometers and another one of 37 kilometers. And I just love it. I love how triathlon and endurance sports, whether it's swimming or cycling or running, whatever it is, it makes you feel alive, and it makes you kind of more daring in all of your life. And we don't get a lot of that excitement in day-to-day life, and triathlon allows for it.
Wow. I mean, you just inspired me to probably go do some training right after this. Okay, so we're gonna kind of dive into the meat of things. You touched on it a little bit, but in terms of triathlons, right? If I'm just, a regular gym goer or a regular runner or a regular do biking, what would you suggest? How would you suggest training for a triathlon in just 3 months? What are some of your tips that you might have for us?
Well, I've got 5 big tips, and we'll get into them here. Mm-hmm. And they're based on the concept of it's a big fancy word. It's called specificity, and this is what triathlon coaches use to sound really fancy. Basically, it's training in a way that is very similar to what you're going to experience in a race. And I found that there's typically 5 areas that people tend to struggle with the most when they're doing their first few races. Mm-hmm. and we'll go through those and how to overcome them quite easily. So the first one is water is the biggest impediment to people doing triathlons. It's the scariest thing. It's the thing that people don't necessarily have a lot of confidence in. So I always recommend that before people do a race, they get into open water, not a pool, because a pool is very controlled. It's easy. You can see the bottom, the black line. There's a lifeguard watching you. But when you get into open water, it becomes a very different scenario. So I recommend that people get into open water around 5 or 6 times. And it doesn't have to be going out for swimming for hours on end, but just being in open water, feeling how the waves knock you around a little bit. It's going to build comfort. And that is following back to specificity. It's specific to what you're going to experience that first day. So about 5 or 6 times in open water, and that's going to put you ahead of a huge amount of triathletes that never go into open water. Now, the next biggest challenge, and this is always a surprise for the first time people do a race, and it certainly was for me. When I first did a race, I had never trained for this specific circumstance, and in the race, I jumped off my bike, and I was racing really hard for the previous half hour, and my legs were kind of tired, and I jump off the bike, and instantly, as soon as I hit the ground, my quads just went and locked up.
Whoa.
And it was awful. And after the race, one of the officials came up to me and said, "How'd you like that feeling when you got off the bike?" And I guess he saw that I was stiff and almost fell over. And how you fix that is by doing, again, 5 or 6 times, and you've got 3 months until the race. You do what are called brick workouts, going from the bike to the run. So what that's going to do is it's going to teach your body how to reroute that blood flow really quickly, because you go from on the bike where you don't really have to hold your body up. The bike and sitting does it for you. And being able to really quickly start running is going to stop you from cramping and things like that, and having to walk through the race.
Right.
So that's a big thing that a lot of new triathletes experience. And the next is something that it kind of just makes you tougher. I would be building up, I call them over distances. And this is doing your training leading into the race and building up to the point that you can do about 20% further than each distance in each discipline. So let's just use an Olympic triathlon, for example. This is making sure that you can swim in the course of a workout 1,800 meters, which is 20% longer than a 1,500 meter race. It's biking 48 kilometers to 50 kilometers. It's running 12 to 13 kilometers. And what this is going to do is all of a sudden when you get into the race, when people are worried about, I could never run for that long, or I could never bike for that long, because you've actually biked, ran, and swam longer, when you get to the race, it's not going to seem like such of a challenge. So it's still going to be tough, but you're going to be a lot more confident when you get up to that race line. Now, the next thing, this is something that, again, I made a really big mistake on, is using the same nutrition in your training that you do when you're racing. So in a lot of cases, I made this mistake. In my first race, I went to the running store right before the race, and I went and grabbed a whole bunch of gels and bars, thinking, all right, this is going to supercharge me during the race, but I'd never tried it. So when I did the race, I had just complete gut rot. I had all this Gatorade in my stomach. I had all the sugar packets in my stomach. And because I'd never done it in training, my stomach didn't know what to do with it. So if just about every triathlete should have either a gel packet or an energy bar during the course of a race. You take one serving about every 30 minutes or so. But you need to also do that in your training so that by the time you get to the race, you're used to it.
Right.
And then the last thing is to figure out your pacing. And I would say the best way to start with this without taking over this live cast for a long time if you go to YouTube and YouTube search triathlon pacing, run pacing, or bike pacing, you'll see some videos that I've put together. And kind of on a really easy way to figure it out is on a scale of 1 to 10, on the bike and the run, you want to be somewhere around about a 7 perceived exertion. You want it to feel like it's kind of hard, but it's not so hard that you can't manage it.
Right.
Yeah, it's manageable. And what happens with a lot of athletes is they say, all right, I'm racing now. It's time for me to get out there and show the world what I'm made of. And they go too hard. And then by the time they get to the end of the bike, they're done, but they still have to run after. And the same thing happens in the swim, that they get to the start line, they work themselves up, and then their heart rate shoots through the roof, and the rest of the race is really difficult. But if you go with that 6 or 7 out of 10 kind of difficulty, you're going to do pretty well. And those would be the five things that most new triathletes experience, that if you just kind of go through these steps that I've outlined, you can overcome a lot of challenges that, in my case, it probably took me 3 or 4 years to learn these 5 things. So those would be the biggest 5.
That is awesome. I learned a lot right now, especially for my own training. So thank you for those 5 tips. I'm sure we're going to have some questions for you in just about a second. So for those of you who don't know who I'm talking to right now, this is of course a very, very special guest, Triathlon Taren, and he is giving us a little bit of tips so that we can approach that triathlon that's happening in August. Remember to check out our Facebook page at TriLife 876 on Facebook page. And right now, I'd like to invite Chuck, Mr. Cameron, to our broadcast, and he is going to lead our question and answer section. What's up, Chuck?
Nothing much. Thanks, Candice. I have some questions. So, Taren, so confidence for me is the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things we have to overcome. How do you know when you are ready to do a triathlon?
Basically, it's funny, when I first started thinking about doing triathlons, I had a really close friend who was an elite triathlete. He was probably top 100 in the world at one point. And I went to school with him, and I had the same issue. I wasn't very confident, and I didn't know if I could do it. And I called him one day and I said, well, how do I do a triathlon? Where do I start? He said, well, you enter and you do it. You do the race, and then you've done a triathlon. And it's as simple as that. Nobody's really ever ready to win the world championships. Even a lot of pros right now will go into a race having doubts, or throughout the race they might have doubts. But it really just comes down to everyone is ready all the time. There is no perfect time to know when you're ready. But the beautiful thing about triathlon is that in almost no matter what race you're in, whether you're first or last, everyone makes the same amount of money, everyone has the same amount of fun, everyone has challenged themselves, and it's not necessarily about hitting a bar and saying, okay, now I'm ready. It's about just doing it and ripping off that Band-Aid, and I guarantee that people will be thankful that they did after going through it.
Question. So if you do one triathlon, can you call yourself a triathlete?
Yes, absolutely.
If you're training for a triathlon, can you call yourself a triathlete?
Ooh, I would say so. I would say that, in my opinion, being a triathlete is more of a lifestyle, and it's not about doing races all the time. It's about having a mindset that you're going to stay active and you're going to challenge yourself a little bit. And some years, for some triathletes, that might mean that they take a step back. And I've got some good friends right now that I still call them a triathlete, but this year they're not doing any races. They're trying cycling and running races. But I think it's more the mindset of staying healthy, staying fit, and challenging yourself a little bit in whatever way that is.
Well, tell that to everybody else that I train with. Even if I'm training, I'm not doing a triathlon, I'm a triathlete. In terms of
bragging rights, Taren.
no, so in terms of importance, so there are three different sports. If you were to pay attention to any one sport, apart from your weakest sport, if you are equally endowed in or capable in all three disciplines, which one is the most challenging that we should focus on in general?
Swimming. Swimming is it's the answer that people don't like to hear because it tends to be everyone's weakest sport, but that's one of the reasons why people should focus on it. If they can become, I'm not even going to say a good swimmer, but confident in the swim, they're going to be miles ahead of everyone else, because that having a good swim, and I mean a good swim just in the sense of you don't panic during the swim, it results in a good bike after because you haven't tired yourself out too much in the swim. Swimming also is low impact, so there's less chance for injury. You can work harder in swimming and do it more frequently without getting injured or without getting sick. Running, while it's really, really good for fitness and making you thin and healthy and aerobically fit, it's very tough to run a lot without getting injured. So first I would say swimming, next I would say biking, because it's such a huge portion of the race. It's typically anywhere from about 40 to 60 to 65% of the total time that you'll spend in a race. And running, while it is very important to have a good run, often people think that by running really fast, they'll have a fast time. In triathlon, it's more about not slowing down. The person who slows down the least will typically do the best. So that is accomplished by small runs done occasionally throughout the week, but always making sure that it's with good form. And if you're ever running very tired, very sloppy, that's not really helping you much. It's actually reinforcing bad habits, because what you want to train yourself to do isn't to run fast like runners that we see on TV and the Usain Bolts of the world. It's just to run with good form for a long period of time.
Triathlon Taren, you have been here. It was a pleasure sitting down here on this live webcast. I'm speaking to you. When I just started triathlon 2 years ago, I used to follow you. So I'm glad the one-on-one personal tips. And I'm glad that you told everybody that I'm a triathlete, even if you just train. And that's
now it's official.
Yeah, thank you. Triathlon Taren said so. So will you be joining us in, as a matter of fact, we have a free ticket for you to come to Jamaica to participate in our inaugural triathlon in August 18, 2018. Will you be here?
I will actually be on a plane that day heading to South Africa to the World Championships, but make it a wild success this year, and in 2019 we can make that happen.
Lovely. I could only say thank you, and it was great having you.
Thank you very much for having me. This was fun.
Thanks, Triathlon Taren. So fantastic to meet you, and I intend to implement all your tips, and I'm sure the people of Jamaica will do the same.
Great. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Good luck at your in South Africa.
All the best, guys. Bye. Next time. Join us next week for the same time. We'll be having just an equally informative and fun interview. And guys, we will be doing this every Friday until the triathlon. What I want you to do is go to our Facebook page and sign up now. Register now, and you could even get a discount if you register today. Thanks, guys. That's it from TriLife 86. Have fun. Bye. Guys, I'm Taren.